And starting things off, I'm very pleased to have with us in studio Representative Bill Cassidy, Congressman from Louisiana. And Congressman, thank you for your time, sir.
Hey, Cam. Thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure. All right, let's talk a little fish if we can. I want to get into the gun control debate, but you have been very active in trying to help out fisheries in the state of Louisiana from what I guess you were calling interference from here in Washington, D.C.
Yes. And so there is a regulatory agency set up by Washington, D.C., which actually does establish how many days a year a family can go out and fish for things like red snapper. They've been decreasing the amount of time they would allow. They were going to cut it down to a weekend, a 9-day season. They've continued to pare it back. Our fisheries folks say, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. If you actually look at the way that they do a census, we should, and you look at what people are bringing in, our fisheries are much healthier than they are allowing it to be. So what our bill would do is we would turn it over to the state. Kind of constitutional.
Right.
Amazing, huh? And it would say that the state would have jurisdiction within 10 miles of its shore and for reef fisheries up to 200 miles off the shore. If they wanted to give it back to the feds, they could. But on the other hand, if they wanted to keep it within the state, they could as well. That would be their option. I think that would be better for the fish, better for the fishermen.
You know, a lawmaker in Washington, D.C. who says, hey, let's take power from D.C. and give it back to the states is probably going to be a lot more popular in the states than in Washington, D.C.
I actually think it's better for our country long term that we turn things back over to the state as much as possible. If you think about it, Cam, the greatness of our country doesn't come from Washington, D.C. The greatness of our country comes from the people who live here. And the state is much closer to those people that live here than is Washington, D.C. So let's return to our greatness. Let's actually give that power back to the people. I think that's the way we should all go.
You know, and it's fascinating when we cover a lot of these wildlife issues, and when the federal government gets involved, as they often do, and pretty much always do now with wildlife issues. It is interesting to see the disconnect between some of the bureaucrats here in D.C. and the people on the ground, whether we're talking about, wolf hunts in the Pacific Northwest or we're talking about fisheries in Louisiana. To me, it's common sense that the people who are actually there present every day are going to know more about these issues than the people who view it from, 30,000 feet in Washington. How do we get the people in D.C. to recognize that?
Well, first thing, I don't think you have to restrict it to wildlife or fisheries issues. You can make this healthcare. You can make it transportation. You can make it a whole raft of things. If you're living in the neighborhood with an issue, you're going to be more intimately connected with it. You can make better decisions for your neighborhood than someone who's 2,000 miles away and may have a totally different agenda than what's going on in your life. Now, how do you do that in our representative form of democracy is that you elect folks who will come to Washington and not go Washington. You want folks here that continue to be as the folks that sent them as opposed to be as the folks here in Washington, D.C.
Right.
I can tell you, folks in Washington think they're the smartest people in the world. I can also tell you that they're not. But we, unfortunately, have given this power to these folks here in Washington.
Yeah, and of course, one of the other big issues that Congress has been wrestling with for months now, over on the Senate side, we saw the vote on gun control. We saw President Obama and Vice President Biden yesterday say that they want to bring this vote up once again. I know that you have spoken out. You've been one of the leading voices in saying, look, let's talk about mental health. Let's not just focus on gun issues. Let's talk about the mental health system in this country. And frankly, the more you know about the mental health system in this country and how it has changed over the past few decades, I got to say, the more pressing a concern it seems to be.
So, Cam, first, folks may not know I'm a doctor. And I still see patients in a public hospital system or public clinic for the uninsured and the underinsured. So for 20 years, this has been my life, if you will. And then I got elected to Congress 4 or 5 years ago, but I still see patients. And as a physician, I think you have to look at the root cause. Now, at Sandy Hook, all this is being driven by tragedies such as Sandy Hook or Jared Loftner or Aurora, Colorado, or Virginia Tech. The common thread there is a young man with recognized but untreated mental health issues. Turns out Manchin-Toomey would not, that gun control bill in the Senate would not have stopped the tragedy at Sandy Hook.
Right.
That mama passed the background check. She bought those weapons legally. It is her son that stole them, killed her, and then went and did the terrible crime. So let's look at the root cause. Let's look at mental health, which is often recognized, untreated. Families don't have the support system. If you talk to the family of someone who has a mental health issue, it's heartbreaking. They really want to do right. It's so hard. So let's begin to address that issue. We can prevent future Sandy Hooks, also do a lot of really good things for families and really good things for patients with mental health issues.
Yeah, there are so many stories of parents who say that their adult children, they're worried about them. They know that there are problems. And yet they're told, well, you have to wait until he commits a crime because he's a grown-up. And you can't, you as a mom or you as a dad, it doesn't matter if he's 22 or 23 years old, he's a grown-up. You can't commit him. You can't, force him to go get psychological treatment. So you have to wait until he commits a crime and he ends up in the criminal justice system, which is not what we want.
So there's a woman I went to high school with, and I just have such regard for her. And her adult son has mental health issues. When he's taken to the hospital and with the decompensation, they won't talk to her. Now, they live together.
Right.
She's the primary caregiver, but by our current legal system, they can't tell her what's going on with her son, even though she is going to be the one caring for him when he leaves.
And isn't that amazing? I mean, here we have with the Affordable Care Act, kids can stay on our children can stay on our insurance until they're 26. But if they're 24 or 22 and they have mental health issues, even though they're on our insurance, we as a parent have apparently no rights whatsoever.
And that does nothing for the affected person. The only way someone with mental health is going to have the best chance to cope with their illness is with family support, the ability to kind of interact with the physician, and to help that person reach the fullness of control of their illness. So we got to make the laws easier for that.
You point out, though, that the annual cost for Medicaid, Medicare, SSI, SSDI benefits for individuals with mental illness, just mental illness, is $105 billion with a B every year. How do we improve this system? Because it seems like, again, in Washington, the answer is, well, we need to throw money at it, Cam. That's how we improve the system. Well, let's chalk it up to $300 billion, and then it'll be 3 times better than what it is right now.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of laws that make it difficult for the family to support their loved one as much as they would like to. So you can begin just by redefining some of these laws. And in some cases, the government actually works against the family. There's a fellow named Joe Bruce. You ought to have Joe Bruce on your show one time. A story was written about in the Wall Street Journal where his son was mental illness. Mm-hmm. His son was put into a healthcare facility. They had a counselor that came and told the son what to tell the doctors to get out. The doctors didn't feel that they could speak to the family because of privacy issues. So the family takes this boy back in their home, not realizing that he was dangerous. He kills his mother. Now he's incarcerated on medications, saying that he never would have done that had he been properly treated. He wished that he had been done differently, things had gone differently. So his father, Joe Bruce, has just become so passionate about this. Now, this is how we can do something better by patients, by families, and cut down on our incidence of crime. And by the way, now we have somebody in a prison system, the highest cost setting to treat patients. Highest cost setting when he could have been managed as an outpatient with a different set of laws.
Unbelievable. Congressman, listen, I could talk to you all hour. Thank you so much for coming in studio. I really appreciate it, and hope we can have you back anytime.
Cam, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
You bet. Congressman Bill Cassidy joins us, Republican from Louisiana.